was pouring there.
Yeah, you can pour me as well. Had Shiur,
Shiur, Shiur.
Shiur, you had Coke.
Shiur wants a cup of Coke.
Yeah, pour everyone.
I don't know. Shiur pours himself half a cup and closed the bottle again.
No, then he poured some people.
And then he legged it. Half a service.
There's no one even on it.
Very nice, Shiur.
Who else is having Coke?
Who's that?
Looks like a yellow one.
Yeah, the guy's like.
The other one though. What it is.
It's the lemon.
That's not Chazanish, is it?
I wouldn't know if it just looks for decibels. I have no idea.
Chazanish and Shop shook it. So this year, you don't have to spend as much on your Aswagim as regular years.
Why?
Because nobody is shoulder shaft.
Except inflation. Inflation means you buy a cheap one.
It's kind of just an excuse.
There's no direction in it, is there?
No.
Right.
Is it just an excuse? What? To hike the price to the COVID?
No, it's inflation.
What inflation? For what?
Jewish inflation.
The price is
It's called Jew tax.
the price is a lot more.
It's called Jew tax.
Okay.
It's very expensive.
You need to lock the door.
Yeah, we should lock the door. We should lock the door, actually.
Just lock it the whole time.
Yeah, we should lock it.
There's a lock on it out the door.
And I thought you was going to.
You can't try and tell it to stay in because it's dangerous.
Yes, I know. We kept trying. Anyway.
Tell him to stay in because the underlying health.
It says it's underlying health condition, so stay at home. Don't go to the shop.
Think about it about it.
Okay. Well, up to Daphne.
Yes.
We're up to Daphne. Zayin Amud Aleph. 4 lines from the top. Memza. We had yesterday a list of shittahs of Shimon and of Yehuda, of Yosef against of Shimon, etc. And the Mashashta came along and told us that we don't agree. This rule, you can't keep to these principles. So the Gemara wants to know where do you see? What's your proof that we don't keep to these principles? So the Gemara now each time the Gemara brings a proof, the Gemara pushes it away, but we don't keep to this rule. What's the Gemara always answer? Because it's explicitly said, when you've been told otherwise, they may put it so down the middle, people can get more. Right. So this is something which the Gemara carries on with different suggestions. And we're up to Al-Mahadatanan, Zayin Amud Aleph, and we're discussing the halacha of somebody who goes on a journey and he needs to put Eruv Tchumin down, he's got no food on him, so he's allowed to just by standing in the spot say, this is my Eruv. So that was the next Gemara. We'll do this Gemara first, sorry. This Gemara is that if a person's got a few houses in one chutzah, and what happens is one of the people did not do an Eruv, and he goes away for Shabbos, does he spoil from everybody else being able to carry? Do we say he owns a property? Since he owns a property, and therefore he's got a right in the chutzah, therefore we say nobody can carry in the chutzah, because he never did an Eruv with everybody else? Or do we say, look, he's not here this Shabbos, so therefore there's no reason that we should be able to carry in this chutzah. After all, he's not going to be carrying at all. So it's only the people left behind.
He still owns it.
Oh, this is discussed. More says, a person leaves his home, goes to say Shabbos in another city. Amir says whether he's a goy or yid, he forbids and nobody's allowed to carry. Rabbi Yehuda says he never asks because Rabbi Yehuda holds that Chazal, when they made their chiyuv of Eruv Chatzeros, only included those that have got possibility of carrying. Rabbi Yosef, if he's a goy oisa, sola in oisa. Can anybody think a difference between a goy and a yid? Why goy should be a problem, yid should not be a problem? Even better. Oh, because a goy can return on Shabbos. He's sola in oisa, over Shabbos. A yid's not going to come back on Shabbos. Somebody told me, maybe I think it was that he had an eruv, and a goy came on Shabbos. It's a problem. You can't do it. If let's say you've got, let's say, 3 families and you've got 2 years, you can't do an eruv if a goy is going to move in on Shabbos. Oh. Okay, we're talking about we went to another town. Even if he just went to spend Shabbos with his daughter in the same town, where he could easily come back. The main thing is he's not intending to spend Shabbos. That's good enough. Again, you've got the kasha that over here we're not following the normal rules. The normal rule is Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon, Aloch Rabbi Yehuda, and he'll pass Rabbi Shimon. Depending on my kasha. Again, you've got no proof where it says, it doesn't say, it doesn't say. That was the Mishnah which I said before. A person's walking is allowed to make it over tchumin just with his feet, meaning with his presence. And the question is, as Shai already half asked, before he got rudely interrupted, as to, is that the ideal way? Is Pshat that Chazal said, look, poor man, what can he do? He's got no food with him. What choice does he have? But really would prefer for him to put the food out. Or do we say no? Do we say this is the ideal way? So this is the machlokes over here. And I'm to that. And Oni, who's coming from out of town, can be able with his feet. Only a poor man, meaning only either a very poor man that has no food, or really means somebody who's walking and has got no food with him, he can do an eruv. Whether you're wealthy, whether you're poor, you can do an eruv with your feet. So if you can always do an eruv with your feet, what's the purpose of ever doing an eruv with food? You can always do it with your feet. What do you gain by doing it with food? Anybody remember? What do you gain by doing? We talked about this once before. It's simpler. What do you gain by doing it with the food if you can always just do it with your feet? Just go and stand there. The answer is send somebody else to do it. If I'm a wealthy person, I've got spare 2 slices of bread. So I'm very wealthy. I've got 2 spare slices of bread. So what I can do is instead of making it tchumin by walking out of the thing, I say, oh, by the way, you're going out of the tchum. Put down my 2 slices of bread or my jar of jam, and that should be my eruv. So Rabbi Yehuda holds, okay, so Meir holds really you're supposed to always, you're always supposed to use food. You're always supposed to use food. But in a case where you've got no food, for example, you're walking along and you've got no food, we will allow you, but to use your presence. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you can use whichever one you want, both olechatchila, there's no problem. But if both olechatchila, so why do you ever need food? You've always got the option to use your presence. The answer is just to help the one who can afford to have somebody else do it for him. Yes, but normally the Gemara understands that if you want to travel somewhere, you'd be happy to go there. So therefore, it's not such a big struggle. That means, especially according to Ramir, that really you're always supposed to use food. But if you've got no ability to use food, for example, you're stuck, you've got no food. So we can understand by Chazal made 2 options: either food, which is lechatchila, or b'di'evad, if you can't, with your presence. But if you hold that both are lechatchila, so why did Chazal need to do both? Just rely on the fact that you can do it with your feet and that's it. So more answers like you're saying, which tells, because we know it's a bit obvious that you have always got the option to send food without you having to make the effort of walking there. Rav Chia Barashi said to Rav Chia Barav in front of Rav, Echad Onen ve'echad Oshem, that we paskin, anybody can use the presence, anybody can use food. We pass like Rav Yehuda. Now here's Rav Yehuda against Rav Shimon, and Rav Yehuda against Rav Meir, we pass like Rav Yehuda, which is actually fits in with the principle we had yesterday, that Rav Yehuda against Rav Meir, we pass like Rav Yehuda. But Talti Lomali, why did he need to say that Aloch is like Rav Yehuda? Just rely on the principles that we had yesterday, that whenever you have a Yehuda against a Meir, we paskin like Rav Yehuda. Why did he have to tell about his son? Why did Rav have to teach his son we paskin like Rav Yehuda? Why didn't he just rely on the fact of what he knew that Rav Yehuda against a Meir? Says my kusha. Maybe Rav never held of these principles. If you remember, all the principles we said yesterday was the name of Rabbi Yochanan. So the question is, the Rav Shalshir said they're not true. So the question is, who told you they're not true? Because if you remember, it's Omar Yaakov, Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Rav didn't hold of it. Just because Rav didn't hold of it doesn't mean Rabbi Yochanan didn't hold of it. So therefore, since it could be that Rabbi Yochanan held it, that means Rav Shalshir said we don't agree with these principles. Furthermore, how do you know? Just because Rav doesn't agree with it, doesn't mean other people don't agree with it. Says the Gemara Elamah, the Tanakh. A man dies without children. Then what happens is you have to yibam chalitza to his wife. Always have to wait 3 months. Now, for Yibum, it's very obvious why you have to wait 3 months. What's the obvious reason? She could be expecting. And if she's expecting and you do Yibum, what have you done? Marrying your brother's wife. Your brother's wife, which is an Issa Kotz. So of course you have to wait 3 months. Chalitza, really, you shouldn't have to wait at all. Because Chalitza, what's the worst comes to the worst? If she's not expecting, you did a B'nai Mitzvah. If she is expecting, and therefore you don't need to do Chalitza or Yibum, so you just took her for Shu for no reason. No, okay, you can't. What's the Chalitza you can't? Oh, the Chazal say a different reason. Like that's much more, it's slightly more complicated. The reason is like this. A chalutza is forbidden to a kohen. Why is she forbidden to a kohen? Because in some similarity, she's like a grusha. So if you get to finish off, you're not allowed to marry a kohen. That's the last statement of it. A chalutza is not allowed to marry a kohen. Now, this one, if she's actually expecting, then the chalitza will not be a chalitza. She is allowed to marry a kohen. Now, what will happen is people will not necessarily know that she was expecting, and they'll see that the chalutza is marrying a kohen. And they'll think to themselves that a chalutza is allowed to marry a kohen. So therefore, we say wait 3 months. Then that way we could be sure about it. So whether a person is zibum or chalitza, he has to wait 3 months. Now this is another halacha. Whenever a woman gets divorced or anything, she always has to wait 3 months, right? 3 months, always a second. What? Oh, to know who the father is. Now here there's big machlokas. What about if the woman can't have children for whatever reason? Do you still have to wait 3 months? It's a machlokas tanoim. There's a book called Migrant Soul. Anybody read it? True book about the woman that became from. She was the last one to speak to Moshe. She had the womb taken out. No, or something like that. Anyway. And what happened was she wanted to know, does she have to wait 3 months? And Moshe says, yes, you do. That was the last thing. Oh, so we'll see. What? Yes. Not to get Eiruvin actually in Shloisha Chadoshim. Echad besulos, echad beulos, echad armonos, echad grushos, echad avusos, echad nesuos. So the Gemara explains in Subas that it's a bit repetitive here because it says that beulos means a woman that had relations, and besulos a woman that never had relations. And one is grushos, avusos, and grushos nesuos. Grusha, when she got in old days had kedusha. Oh, nowadays we have it. You have kedusha and nesuah in 2 separate stages. Kedusha is out of kedusha, so you're still not allowed to be with her. Nesuos is after you've done chuppah. So what happens now is all do it together. No, they used to have like a year gap. So whether she's an almona from Eiruvin, or she's an almona from Nisuin, either way, or Kavusha from Eiruvin Nisuin, she's forbidden. So more explains Echad B'Sulos V'Echad B'Ulois, and we explain what does it mean Echad B'Sulos V'Echad B'Ulois. The Gemara says it means either she was from Eiruvin or she was from Nisuin. So if she was married and she did Nisuin, so she could potentially have children, yes, also she can do Eiruvin, because Eiruvin will never cause children, because Eiruvin is just Kedushin, you still don't have to be with her. But Avusos and Avusa, Yinosu, they're allowed to get married, because he always is Meikor. If you've already done Nisuin, you're only allowed to do Eiruvin. If you've done only Eiruvin, you're not allowed to do Nisuin. Chutz Avusa Shviyot of Teshlibo Gaspo. That's what happens is the Gemara in Subas also tells us that in Yehuda, before the marriage, they would spend the chas and kala a lot of time together in order to be relaxed with each other. So therefore, in the time they spent together, it could possibly be that they did beer. And therefore, in Arusa and Yehuda was forbidden even to do this, had to wait 3 months. But otherwise not. So all women are allowed to Eiruvin, not Chishveris. And the Chutz Amona, but they Ibo. Because of Avedus, she should wait 3 months for her husband. So we've got here 3 different shittas. Shittas Tanekama, which is Rameir, as we will see, he holds that we're Geyser everything. Rabbi Yehuda's depends, he makes slightly more complicated, depends if you've done Eiruvin, you're allowed to do Nisun, if you've done Nisun, you're allowed to do Eiruvin, but no more. Rabbi Yossi says you're allowed to always do Eiruvin, except if it's an almona, because she should wait 3 months for the Avedus of her husband. But we know Rabbi Lezer Le'olad Bei Medrash, Rabbi Lezer once never came to Beis Medrash, that's the Amoyer Rabbi Lezer. Ashkele Rabbi Asi Davar Kohen, Yisov Asi, was standing there, Amalei, My Omo Bei Medrash, Amalei, Ochem Avichna, Loch Kav Yossi, Aloch Zek Kav Yossi. Vichlad Yichidot Polygale. Rabbi Yochanan only passes Kav Yossi against one, not against a public. And God says, and indeed, V'hotanya, as we once mentioned, V'hotanya can always be V'hotanya, it's a kasha, or V'hotanya ben Yichusa. Here Rashi says V'hotanya ben Yichusa, as we will see. Here we're going to have other cases where a woman is just getting divorced or widowed, and we know that she's not expecting. Till now we were discussing where she was only an arusa, where she was only did kedushin. Now we're going to bring other cases where we're 100% sure that she can't have children. How? She's moved out. She went to her father's house for a few months before she got divorced. Maybe that's why she got divorced. She had a falling out. The husband's really old, or the husband's really ill. Or whether she's ill, or whether she's an akor. Rashi says akor. How do you know a woman's an akor? If she married 3 different men and she never had children. Zakeno, if she's very old, Katano, if she's very young. The islandist, Rashi says, is a woman that can't have children. She's got no hair between her legs and no breasts. Therefore, we know that she's not a woman who can conceive. Or she can't have children. So Rashi says, well, that's the same as akor. So Rashi says, no, here we're talking about someone who took a certain medication to make sure that she can't have children. Or her husband's actually in prison. Or she had a miscarriage. What happened was she got divorced or widowed, and then she had a miscarriage. So that there's no way in the world that she's now expecting from her husband, because she's already had a miscarriage from after she became widowed. She could have given birth. No, if she gave birth, that would not also machrik. I hear that's a good question. If she gave birth, maybe not. Kulon sichen amten shlosh chadoshim, have to wait 3 months to be Rabbi Yosi mate leois v'nosim miyad. So we see Rabbi Yosi is mate immediately because he's not cheshbon. Says the Gemara, normally, why did you have to say before that we pass like Rabbi Yosi? Why did Rabbi tell us earlier we pass like Rabbi Yosi? Almost a Rabbi Yosi halachic Rabbi Yosi. We pass like Rabbi Yosi. I mean, the Gemara basically brings a long machlokas, where basically the whole machlokas is in a case where it's impossible for her to have to this chashash for 3 months. Does she have to wait? Rameir says she does. Rabbi says she doesn't. And Rabbi Yosi passes like Rabbi Yosi. And the question, Rabbi passes like Rabbi Yosi. The question is, why did Rabbi need to pass like Rabbi Yosi? Why didn't he rely on his general rule that Rameir Rabbi Yosi, like which we learned yesterday? Is a vaya that general rule is not true? Because if that general rule was true, Rabbi Yochanan won't need to bother. Answers, well, my question. Whenever Rameir came up with a gezerah, not with a halacha, a gezerah is something which Chazal made a new chumrah because of a chashash that might come. We always pass like Rameir. So, since Rameir says we pass like Rameir in these kinds of scenarios, Rabbi Yochanan had to tell us no, we pass like Rabbi Yosi. Okay, so again, if Rabbi Yochanan holds Rameir Rabbi Yosi, halacha Rabbi Yosi always, why did you have to pass like Rabbi Yosi here? But Mishasha wants to prove it's a vaya that we don't hold with the principle. Says, well, no. Here it's a gzeir v'ameir. A gzeir v'ameir is a chumrah, a special mishmeres, a special guard that Rameir puts into place, and in fact, because of the fact that it's a gzeir v'ameir, we are machmir. Even though normally we don't pass like Rameir, here we are machmir. Says the Gemara, Elamahad Tanya. The halacha is we don't go to do business with Goyim a few days before the first Perek Avodah Zarah, a few days before their Chaga. Why? Because then they do business, they're very grateful, they'll go and thank their gods on their Yom Tov. So now the Braisa here brings certain things that you are allowed to do, all for the basic principle that anything which causes Yiddish business to grow, and Yiddish economy to grow better, or Yiddish property to get bigger, especially if it's an Eretz Yisrael, we allow it, even though there's a chance that the Goy will now celebrate that he let's say you buy a property in Eretz Yisrael. So he might celebrate. The fact is, we want that people in Eretz Yisrael should. You're allowed to go to a Goyish marketplace. So here the Rishonim is saying that avodim and shvachos is a very big. Obviously, why? Because whenever you buy an Evet Kanani, what do you do with him? You do Bismillah and Tefillah. So you're actually making him a Kaddish a person. But even animals, when they belong to a Yid, are more Kaddish than when they belong to a Goy. So you're actually doing a mitzvah by buying it from a Goy. But even allowed to buy houses, fields, and vineyards. You're even allowed to go to their courts in order to sign and to document it. You're saving from their hands. The Chazan Midrabanan said the whole of Chutz La'aretz is Tomei. Why? Because the Chutz La'aretz people do not bury their dead very carefully. They scatter them around. They saw people mark the graves. So for the whole of Chutz La'aretz Midrabanan Tomei. So you're allowed to go to Chutz La'aretz to judge, Lodun v'le'are to argue with them. So here the Gemara interrupts. Beis HaKvos sakadatoch tuma deraisi. Of course, can't go to a Beis HaKvos. Elo Beis HaPras D'Rabbanan, a place where Midrabanan the cave was plowed over. So we do our bun on this tumah everywhere. A kohen is allowed to go there just for the sake of just to go for court. A person allowed to come tameh this issue from Monteo. I see all the kohenim are very disturbed because kohenim shouldn't really be the chutzlaats. So be allowed to marry a wife. What? Oh, and to learn Torah. Yehuda Amos says, if you can't find where to learn, if you find where to learn, you mustn't go out of Eretz. Even when you can learn Eretz, so Nami Yitami, you're also allowed to go to the Chutzos. Why? Lefi, top of Mem Zayin with base. A person doesn't always learn from everybody. One person gains more from this one, from a different one. So you're allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'os, even though there's Tumah Midrabanan, just because to learn Torah, even if you've got a Rebbe in Eretz Yisrael. So let's summarize what we've learned. Everybody's allowed to go to buy a property from a guy even before his day of Avodah Zarah, even though he'll celebrate in order to be mekadosh the items which belong to eat. Now, regarding going from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'os to learn Torah, that is a machlokes. Rabbi Yehuda says only if you can't find anybody in Eretz Yisrael to teach you Torah. Rabbi Yossi says even if you can, each time a person learns better from a different place. He left Eretz Yisrael, went to Tzidon to learn Torah, and we see they went to Tzidon even though he could have learned to Eretz Yisrael. Now, why? What's the kasha? You should already say it by now. What's the kasha? No, we do. We always pass like grace against one person. But why did you tell us? Why did you have to tell me that Allah when do we say in the Mishnah? But by Bryce, when it comes to Bryce, not even by Bryce. So again, Rabbi Yehuda set a list of principles. Right? As I'm sure you all wrote up by kitchen walls to memorize it, etc. So the Gemara asks the kasha. We've got loads of places we see otherwise. Each time the Gemara finds an answer, either because we explicitly differently, or because there was a reason why to teach it to us. There you had to teach us because we're mere big savor. So here, because it's in the Brisa, not in the Mishnah, you might feel the rules don't apply, because in the Brisa, things are not as accurate. Rashi says sometimes in the Brisa, the wrong person is quoted. So you might feel we don't agree with those principles. In the Brisa. Says the Gemara, Elo. When the Shiur wanted to say that these principles are not true, this is what he wanted to say. Not everybody agrees with these principles. The Rav didn't agree with this principle. Like we saw earlier, the Rav taught his son that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda regarding doing an Eruv with your feet or with food, whichever one you prefer. You don't have to machmir, you can do whichever one you prefer. Even though we already know that principle, that's Rav didn't hold to the principle. So Mishasha wasn't arguing that Rabbi Yehuda holds to these principles. He was arguing that not everybody agrees with these principles. Okay. Coming back to our Mishnah. In our Mishnah, we had the machlokes, actually a double machlokes. That's like this. Do you need das to be koine shvisa? Do you have to have thinking when you're koine shvisa? Rabbi Yehuda says you don't. The Chachamim say you do. There are two ramifications to this machlokes. What are the two ramifications? One is hefze hefka. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a hefka item is koine shvisa. According to the Chachamim, it's not koine shvisa. Another ramification is a sleeping person. A person who's fast asleep when Shabbos comes in. According to Rabbi Yehuda, he's koine shvisa. According to the Chachamim, he can only walk 4 hours. And as we mentioned, we pass on both the kula, even though it's a slightly contradictory, we pass on both the kula. And the question is, what would you say if a goy owns an item? Let's say a goy, your next door neighbor is a goy, he owns an apple. And he comes to you on Yom Tov afternoon and says to you, here, thank you so much, you're so careful wearing your mask, here you can have an apple. Are you allowed to carry the apple out of the tchum of Shabbos? What would you say? What would you say? So you can work it out a bit like this. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that you don't need das, it shouldn't be any difference. It should have a tchum. According to the Chachamim, that you need das, a goy has no das, so therefore it's not koine shvisa. So therefore, it'll be up to you to decide how far you should be able to take it. So this thing, well, discussing more goes back and forth, but okay. Oh, you say it's exactly like Hefka? Not exactly. Hefka has, okay. Oh my God, they don't have shvisa, meaning that it's up to you. When you get the apple, you can take it to wherever you want. So, for example, if you made an Eruv before Yom Tov came in to the north of Manchester, you can take the apple he gave you Yom Tov afternoon to the north of Manchester. If you get an apple from a Yid, it's important that halacha. The Gemara in Beitz is very marich about this. If you get an apple from a Yid on Yom Tov afternoon, can you carry it to your end of your tchum? What's the halacha? No. Because when Yom Tov came in, it belonged to a different Yid. The Gemara in Beitz discusses an interesting story. You have a loaf of bread. One person gave water, one person gave salt, one person gave flour, and each one made a tchum to a different direction. So where would you be able to take that loaf of bread to? No, let's say everybody on Yom Tov came in. You had water, I had flour, he had salt, he had sugar. And then together on Yom Tov afternoon, we decided to make a bread. On Yom Tov, you had to make bread on Yom Tov. So, you can only take it to where all four of us can walk. So if you made a tchum to the north, I made it to the south, you to the east, and the west, only in the middle. It's important halacha. It's not so negea because you barely got the tchum. You can only take if a goy has something says shemuola kula. Now, if a goy owns something and Yom Tov afternoon and gave you an apple, you can take it to wherever you're allowed to go. And we don't say that where the goy was Kiddush Shvisa, that the apple was Kiddush Shvisa. No, nowhere was not Kiddush Shvisa at all. The man says, well, who was he speaking for? When nobody owns it. In Kiddush Shvisa, you can take it to wherever you want. That means like this: the goy certainly is not Kiddush Shvisa. Because it doesn't keep Hilchos Shabbos, he doesn't keep Erev Chumin. He doesn't have a Shvisa for Shabbos. So if Hefka is not Kiddush Shvisa, Kavachiv, a goy who owns it, of course, not Kiddush Shvisa. Ela limud avich menoi. The Kumash Malon, Emadam avich menoi Kiddush Shvisa. When do we say Hefka is Kiddush Shvisa? Hani meni Hefka Hefka to lesu balim. Avachav Samach it is to balim lo. It says that according to avich menoi, since the goy, since no, not Chuma. So it's not saying a Chuma. He's saying a Kula. Since a goy doesn't own it, since a goy doesn't keep Yom Tov, therefore there's no shvisa through the goy, and you're allowed to take it wherever you want. That means if you find a complete hefke item on Yom Tov, you can only take it 2,000 amos, because when Shabbos Yom Tov came in, it was kind of shvisa in its spot. But if you take it from a goy, then you're allowed to take it to wherever you want, because a goy is not kind of shvisa. Meisli. Here we have a list of examples where somebody gets something from a goy on Yom Tov. Different examples. The reason why you have to have all these different examples is discussed in other places, but this is a list of examples where you get something on Yom Tov. Let's say, for example, you borrow a pot from a goy on Yom Tov afternoon. You lent a goy a pot on Yom Tov. He gave it back to you on Yom Tov. In both cases, when Yom Tov came in, the goy had it, either because it always belonged to the goy and he gave it to Yom Tov afternoon, or you lent it to him, so when Yom Tov came in, it belonged to him. Or anything that you put as a storage, you set it aside in the tchum. In all these cases, you've only allowed to take it 2,000 amos or no more. That means even if you make an Eruv, you cannot rely on your Eruv, you can only take it 2,000 amos. If a goy brings food from out of the tchum, you're not allowed to move them at all. Why? Because it's out of the tchum. So the fruit will come out of the tchum. You're not allowed to move them. In fact, if he bought it for you, you're not even allowed to eat them because you're not allowed to be nene. He did an issa for you. We see from this price that goy is kind of shvisa. So if you say that's a good avich goy is kind of shvisa, mani avich menoi. That goy does not kind of shvisa. Again, let's summarize what we've just learned. Shmuel came along and said that a goy is not kind of shvisa. We asked, who was he speaking? According to Chamim, we don't need to tell us that. Of course, not kind of shvisa. Hefka is not kind of shvisa. Goy is not kind of shvisa. So he's coming to tell us according to Birch Benui. According to Birch Benui, it comes out therefore that nobody holds that a goy is kind of shvisa. That means according to everybody, when your goy gives you something, you're allowed to take it to wherever you want to take it. If that's the case, this brisa that limits you from an item which a goy owns and tells you can only take it to 2,000 amos doesn't go according to anybody, not according to Yechidun, not according to Chachamim. Says the Gemara, "Le'olam kasav abich v'noi chef se'ech dochi koinen shvisa." They are koinen shvisa, and therefore you only allowed to get 2,000 amos. The shmod amakra bonon. The comments are bonon pshita is obvious. Be'echet teisla should be koinen shvisa. Mal the temek zeh balim denochim wanted to balim the yisod kamash malon. Let's just do 2 more lines of chibav. No ma v'yichnon chef senochi koinen shvisa zeh balim denochim wanted to balim the yisod. Mishmor talks about this. Interesting. Look up something else. So Mishmor mamish is ma'ich about this. That in fact by a goy were machmir, and that's how we pass. That what? That it's true that if you find a lost item, a hefker item on Yom Tov afternoon, you can take it to wherever you can go. Wherever you can go, you can go. You can take the item. Oh, when Yom Tov came in, it wasn't yours. It doesn't matter. Since it wasn't yours, so it wasn't kind of shvisa. Wherever you made your aim, you can take the item with you as well. So if you borrow somebody's watch, you can walk as far as your wherever is permitted for you, you're allowed to go. Sorry, not if you borrow somebody's watch. If you find a hefker watch, you can take it to wherever you want to go. But if it belongs to a yid, as we spoke about before, you're only allowed to take it as far as the yid who owned it when Yom Tov came in. So if, for example, I own a watch and I give it to you on Yom Tov afternoon, you can only take it where I'm allowed to go, not further. Here we have a very big chumrah, that if a guy owns a watch and he gives it to you on Yom Tov afternoon, you also can't take it out of the chum. And the question is, mechatesa. The guy doesn't have shvisa. The answer is, if we permit you to carry somebody else's items, then you'll say, if a goy gave it to me, I'll take it wherever I want. If a yid gave it to me, I'll take it wherever I want. And you won't realize there's a difference between a yid and a goy. So therefore, we forbid you. And therefore, by a goy, we're actually machmir. So you only, if a goy gives you an item, you can only take it according to where it was when Yom Tov came in, 2,000 amos, and that's it. You can't take it out of, even if you make your own with chumin, you can't take it. You have to be machmir. Well, that says a little story which supports this. I think Ani Dichri, these male rams, the Osil Mavechta. Mavechta was the name of a town. Sholu Rava lived in Mechuzah and Mizvah Menayim. Mechuzah was another town. So Rava allowed the people who lived in Mechuzah to go to Mavechta and buy. Let's say there were 3 places. There was where the ram started Yom Tov, beginning of Yom Tov, place X, we'll call it. The goyim moved their rams more than 2,000 amos to Mavrechta, which is a new town. Rava was a Rav in Mechuzah, a 3rd place. The people from Mechuzah to Mavrechta, how did they get there? The answer is they made an Eiruvin. They made an Eruv Tchumin to get there. So the people from Mechuzah got to Mavrechta on Yom Tov afternoon, and you're allowed to buy and shecht animals on Yom Tov. So they went to Mavrechta, and what? You're allowed to make a kinyan, you're allowed to. Will not pay. You can't pay. So obviously you can't pay. Okay, but you're not allowed to pay. You're allowed to acquire without payment and without speaking about the price of it. Okay. So again, you've got 3 towns. We'll put the 3 towns here for the picture. On I think. So here was where the ram started Yom Tov, and there's more than 2,000 amos to this town called Mavrechta, and here was Mechuzah, and again there's more than 2,000 amos. But here they made it over to Chumash. So Rava was the Rav in this town. Told them, go there, buy the animals, and bring them back. What was Rava's svah? Why did Rava allow it? The answer is, he held that a goy is not koine shvisa. Since a goy is not koine shvisa, it's like hefker. So for the yid goes and buys it, and then the animal goes according to the yid and takes it back to his place. Says, there's a small problem with the fact that the goy took it out of the tchum, and he took it out of the tchum on Yom Tov. Very good. The goy didn't do it for them. He did it down because he wanted to sell it. He didn't know Yidim were going to come in the market. So since he didn't do it for them, it is okay. Right? That's how the Rishonim explain. So again, my dad this is another thing to add to your list. Whenever except for where? When do you always pass the next Shmuel? Comes to Chosh Mishpat. Shmuel Abichon Pesach Abichon, except for Chosh Mishpat. Okay. If you allow people to take the rams from here, next Yom Tov, Yidden will be there, and they will be selling rams. And then what will happen is, Yidden will come from Mechuzah, pick it up, and shecht it and take it back. And then it's definitely awesome, because since the Yidden owned it when Yom Tov came in, so of course it's awesome, so how can you take it from Goyim? Hada said, I made a mistake. I changed my mind. They can sell it to the people living in Mavrechta. So he allowed people in Mavrechto to eat the rams in Mavrechto. And here again, there was a chiddush. What was the chiddush? The halacha is that something that comes out of the tchum, even if it didn't do it for you, but the fact is it belonged to the goy. And now we just said that the goy has got the same principle as a yid, because we're machmi exeo goy to Yisrael. And by Yisrael, when you take something out of the tchum, what happens to it? How far are you allowed to move it? 4 amos. Which, if that's the case, how could Rav even allow these people to eat it? What's the answer? Why did Rav allow these? Okay, he first allowed these people to eat it. We said that was wrong because he thought that nobody was Kodesh Shvisa, so they could take it there. So he said, no, I made a mistake. We have to be Choshesh Goya to Yisrael. So now we allowed the people of Mavrechto to come and eat it in Mavrechto. Why did he allow them? What? So, more than that. Who says that? That's Gamliel, Gamliel Akiva. Gamliel said that if you take something out of the Tchum, ba'oinus, and here it's a goy, and the items, there was no yid, there was no avera involved, because there was. So therefore, everywhere in the town, if you put it in an enclosure, you're allowed to go anywhere within the enclosure. So Rashi, the whole Mavrechto was enclosed, and therefore they were allowed to eat it the whole of Mavrechto, but only there, but not out of the town. So now we've got one more halacha, that since Friday is always more of a lachatz, and this story starts here and finishes there, would be machnik do it today. So here, there's a picture, a small picture. It's nice to add it in. If you can add it, Reish Nun Ches. Do you have the picture book in front of you?
Everyone's here though.
Okay, everyone's
not
here. No, it's good.
You got it up.
Reish Nun Ches. It's a small picture. It's very easy. Oh, there's a couple. Has it? Oh, it's not quite as dramatic, but it's the same thing, exactly the same thing. Right. You've got 2 towns, and each, at the exact point of 2,000 amos from the 2 towns, have a pond. In the pond, there's a net, which the fish get caught in. The net is at exactly the 2,000 amma mark. Now, the question is like this. Water flows through a net, right? Now, the water is called a shvisa. So if I drink from one end, then it's going to be a problem from the other end. In fact, Yehuda, have you got it still, the picture book?
Yeah.
Do you mind putting up also Kuf Chav Ches? Because this picture is much, much earlier. It comes in a little bit. Okay, let's see the go inside. Tell me over here. Cheva, a net, shvein Chumash Shabbos, shvein Chumash Shabbos. Tzorich, bechitza shel baz, atop b'mechesem and aleph, tzorich bechitza shel baz l'afsika, you have to have a metal iron wall between them. Mecharech alei avitzim, b'chadid, avitzim, b'chadid, laughed when you heard the salah. Well, so my time will come mecharech. Why did he mock it? If you hold that what? That this water is Kodesh Shvisa at the end of the 2,000 amos. And therefore, we don't want the water. Let's explain it better. The water moves around, right? Water doesn't stay still. So if water stays, the water which was at one end was Kodesh Shvisa according to the people of the Hefker of the other town. And therefore, what happens is, there are Kodesh within that 2,000, past the fence, and now you're going to take the water. If you look at the picture, the people of town B from one end might be taking water from people of the other water which was on the other side of the fence. If that's the case, and he held like the Rabbanan Mekula, the Chefse Hefker are not kind of Shvisa, and therefore wherever you get water on Yom Tov, you can take it wherever you want. If there's a machlekes tanoim, are you allowed to mock the one who's machmir? That doesn't make any sense. Water which flows, everybody is allowed to carry it. Why? Why is moving items not kind of shvisa? Anybody remember why not kind of shvisa? What? Why water which is flowing is not kind of shvisa? Because since it's constantly flowing, so therefore it's always in the same. You don't know where it's going to be. So therefore, it's never actually at any particular moment kind of shvisa. Said, maybe the water was not moving. You need a metal wall. Why did the net not work? because water goes through the net. Water, if you've got a metal wall, and it only goes, the one understood that this metal wall is not going to go from top to bottom. It's impossible. You're just going to put a bit of a metal wall. A bit of a metal wall is also going to let water go through. So that's why he mocked it. You've got a net, the water goes through. You put a metal wall, the water's going to go through. So what have you gained from it? Says well again, water goes through. Maybe what he meant to say was you need a metal wall, but the Maisa, nothing's going to work because it's impossible, and therefore nobody's going to be able to drink this water from this pond, because at the end of the day, every bit of water could be coming from out of the tchum. Chazal will make when it comes to water. If you've got the ability to see the picture, which Yehuda hopefully put up. The picture is Kufrav Ches, where a person's living on a balcony. Yes, we've had this a few times. And he wants to draw water from the pond which goes underneath. And he hasn't got a wall that goes all the way down into the water. It's hanging in the air. What's the halacha? Is he allowed to take water? The halacha is by water, Chazal allowed a mechitza which doesn't go all the way down to work as a v'yom mechitza. Why? But why? What's the svar? Nice mechitza doesn't stop it. The answer is, we had the discussion about the answer is because by water, since it's such a necessity of life, Chazal felt that we have to be make. So therefore, says the Gemara. Chazal will always make it by water. Since we make it by water, therefore we have to be make it again. There was a pond which was exactly at the 2,000 amma mark. He said, besides for the net, you have to put a metal wall. The question is, what's the purpose of the metal wall? And the Gemara says like this. So he laughed. What's the purpose of the metal wall? He laughed. And the Gemara now suggests many reasons why he laughed. Is it because he's making? That's not a reason to laugh. Just because one person's machmir, you're making, that's not a reason. Is it because he held that it was moving and therefore it's not going to shvi? So that's not true. Because maybe we're talking about a still pond. Is it because we're talking about that metal wall doesn't work? Maybe he was trying to say because it doesn't work, it's no good. It says, well, no. By water, even if it is moving above the fence, we allow you to drink the water. And therefore, even without the metal wall, you'd be allowed to drink the water from either side, because we consider a fence, which even if it doesn't stop water from moving, we consider it like a proper fence regarding water because it's a special color. And therefore, Rav Yosef laughed and he said it wasn't necessary. Even without the metal wall, you're allowed to drink the water. Okay, so we're carrying on with Shem tomorrow at 8:05 from over here, which is 5, 10, 18 lines down on Mem Ches Mudav. 18 lines down. Oh, is that called moving water if it's basically still? Yeah, it's straight after Shachris. Shachris is quite late on Eiruvin Kippur because it's Eiruvin Kippur. It's a Sunday.
Tomorrow's in the morning.
What?
Tomorrow's in the morning.
Tomorrow's in the morning, yes. Straight after Shachris. I passed 3 days for I don't know. Where'd you get this from?